So if you're watching this video, you're probably thinking about quitting YouTube. You're probably thinking about giving up on growing on YouTube, going full-time on YouTube, and making some serious money from the YouTube platform. I'm going to show you not only why you shouldn't give up on making money from YouTube, but that actually you should go all in on it, and also how to make it a whole lot easier, how to skip a lot of the steps in the process that are holding you back, how to skip over a lot of these steps that are really making you want to give up on YouTube, on making money from YouTube and going full time on YouTube. So if we look over here, there's a couple of graphs drawn, right? And here is how every single thing that you ever do, not just on YouTube or in business, but in life. Every single time you start something new, let's say you're going into a new business venture. I mean, we can just use YouTube as an example, right? Let's say somebody approaches you, or maybe you see an ad on Instagram, maybe you see one of my YouTube videos on how to grow on YouTube and how to make money on YouTube, and you hear me talking about it and you're like, wow, this sounds so amazing. It sounds so easy. Justin makes it sound so simple. I can do that. There doesn't even seem to be a downside to it. Why wouldn't I do that? It seems like it's so easy. I can't wait to quit my job. This is just going to be a straight line up, right? And when you first start out, it's going to start out around right here. And maybe you'll even see some luck in the very beginning. And you might be like, oh my God, I'm making crazy progress. Maybe you make a couple $1,000s in your first month or something. Or maybe you make, just get 1,000 subscribers, get monetized, whatever. You start to see some decent progress and you're like, wow, this really is that easy. Justin wasn't lying in his videos, right? But every single time, and this doesn't just go for YouTube, this goes for everything, every business model, going to the gym when you first start out, whatever it is, every single time, everybody hits this part right here where you go straight down. And it's like, I call this the pit of despair. This part right here is the pit of despair. And you always hit this. Every single time you hit this, no matter what you're going into, no matter if it's a business venture, if it's the gym, if it's, public speaking, I don't care what it is. You always hit the pit of despair. What the pit of despair is you're starting to realize the dream that you were sold by whoever sold you the dream doesn't exist. That dream does not exist. Okay, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. The grass, in fact, was not greener on the other side because you switched from drop shipping to faceless YouTube channels. The grass wasn't greener over there. The grass is never greener. And it sounds so cliche and everything, but the grass is greener where you water it. So what a lot of people will do when they get to the pit of despair is they either go find another shiny object where they get sold another dream and then they just go hop to the other dream, or maybe they switch niches on their YouTube channel to something else because they think the niche is the issue. When in reality, this is where you separate yourself from everybody else. When you hit the pit of despair, when you start to see the numbers fall off, you start to realize that the grass wasn't greener, that you maybe made a mistake, the worst thing that you could possibly do is make another mistake by hopping again to something else, by jumping to another new niche or to another new business model or whatever it is. If you're watching this and you're thinking about giving up on YouTube, the worst thing you could actually do right now is give up on YouTube, because what are you going to do? Are you going to just accept the fact that you're just going to work your job forever? Maybe that will work for 6 months. Maybe you'll accept the fact that you're just going to work your job forever for 2 years. But eventually you're going to want to try to start something else new, right? A new business model or whatever. And guess what? You're going to see the same exact thing happen again. You're going to get to the same point and you're going to give up or hop to something else again. You're going to get to that pit of despair and you're going to quit just like everybody else does. What you don't realize is if you just keep pushing through the pit of despair, realize that everybody hits it, that you're inevitably going to hit it in everything that you do. If you keep pushing through that pit, that's how you separate yourself from 99% of the other people who are going to try this and fail and quit when they hit this pit. Everything. You're always going to hit this pit. You're always going to hit this pit. The only way that you lose is if you quit or you pivot. If you keep pushing through, it's going to look something like this, right? You're going to stay in it for a little minute and then you're just going to hockey stick straight up. You're just going to hockey stick straight up. And it's going to be tough, man. You're probably going to shed some tears. I'll be real with you. You're probably going to cry a little bit because of how tough it is. Because you're going to be like, man, I was sold this dream. I sold the dream to myself, or somebody else sold it to me. I thought the grass was greener. I thought I was just going to start YouTube and I was just going to become a millionaire in 6 months. And then you start to realize none of that's true. It's not going to happen. It's actually a really tough road. I can't even begin to describe how tough the road was for me. The great thing is Everybody needs to go through this pit in one form or another. Okay, and I'm going to explain how you can skip the pit here in 1 second. You just completely just skip it. But if you go through it, what is on the other side of that pit is actual freedom. Here's what I mean. Let's say there's one person who got really good at YouTube doing it all by himself, right? Didn't have any help. That's me, right? I got really good at YouTube. I didn't have any help. I didn't have a mentor. It took me a long time, and it took me a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, literally. Okay? I got banned multiple times. You know, you guys probably know the story at this point, right? My progress was reset over and over again due to no fault of my own. And I had to keep pushing through that pit of despair over and over again. And on the other side of that was actual freedom. Because now I have full faith in myself that no matter what happens, I can get dropped into a random city completely dollarless and homeless. And I know I'll be posting YouTube videos and I'll be making money off YouTube in 2 months. You know, I'll be making a full-time living off YouTube in 2 months. That doesn't happen unless you go through the pit. So let's say we have one person who did stuff like that, right? Who went through the pit of despair over and over again and got out on the other side. Saw the hockey stick effect that I'm talking about over and over again versus somebody who caught a crypto pump. If that person catches a crypto pump, they make a few $1,000,000. If they go broke, they are broke now. If somebody who went through the pit of despair over and over again goes broke, guess what they do? They go through the pit of despair again. The great news is once you go through it once, it's a whole lot easier to go through it a second time. And then the third time gets a whole lot easier. And then eventually you just don't go through it anymore. The pit of despair is necessary unless you get some sort of help to skip over the pit of despair, which I'm going to talk about how to skip over the pit of despair here right now. But just know the pit of despair is not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that you're on the wrong track. It actually means you're on the right track. If you're not in the pit, if you don't ever hit the pit of despair, you're probably not doing anything worth doing anyway. So the pit of despair is probably where you are right now. All you got to do is keep going and you separate yourself from 99% of the population, or you can quit and just be an average Joe. Those 2 options that you have. Here's option number 3 though. So the only way to skip over the pit of despair, and I think it's the biggest cheat code in the world, right? And I've kind of realized this not just with business and with YouTube and growing on YouTube, but also with just fitness and anything that you can think of, right? Social skills, no matter what it is. The easiest thing to do and the quickest route to take would be just to hire someone who's already done it and gone through the pit of despair, preferably multiple times, and they can just tell you how to skip over it, right? So instead of it looking like this, where it's, you know, you start off pretty good and then you hit a really big dip in the pit of despair and then you have to wait maybe like a couple years or maybe 4 or 5 years and then you finally hockey stick up, you can just like start here, hire somebody, and it'll look more like this. Right? It's not going to be like the drastic hockey stick effect that you see right here, but it's going to be a gradual increase and you're not going to have to go through the headaches and the literal tears, man. Like literal blood, sweat, and tears. I know it's a figure of speech, but yeah, you know, you're probably going to cry a few times going through this stuff alone. Or you can just hire somebody to tell you how to skip over the pit. And every single time you have a question, every single time a channel gets banned or gets demonetized, or you don't know where to go with your niche, you don't know what video to post next or whatever the case is, you have somebody there to tell you exactly what to do because they've been through it over and over again. They've been through the worst of it over and over again. So no matter how bad your problem is, dude, you know, they're there to help you out. And I'm not saying it has to be me. You know, if you don't like me, you find me to be cocky or whatever, like, I don't know, go hire somebody else. You know, it's fine. No hard feelings, man. But if you have any sort of money, you have any way to get creative, credit cards or whatever, dude, get creative with it. You can save yourself 4 or 5 years. You can time travel 4 or 5 years in the future to the more successful version of yourself. And also, more importantly, save yourself the stress, the headaches, the blood, sweat, and tears, man. Now, I've been going through it recently. I'm not going to lie to y'all. You know, there's been a lot of things happening in my life that have made me really value peace and really value my time and my energy and just not having stress in my life. I can't even tell you how valuable that is. I'm sure you know. I'm sure you have stressors in your life as well. And if you can pay to skip over that stress, to skip over the 4 or 5 years of just grueling work and pain and stress, it's a no-brainer to do that. Once again, it doesn't have to be me. You can go find somebody else that you like more than me if you want to. But the no-brainer thing to do would be to just skip over the pit of despair. and just become a full-time YouTuber in a couple months versus waiting 4 or 5 years to do it. If you do want to hire me and you do want me to help you get to this point, just go ahead and click the link in the description. You can book a call with my team, and we'll see if you're a good fit for the program. If you are a good fit, we'll get you enrolled. If you aren't, we'll point you in the right direction. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, or you're maybe still thinking about giving up on YouTube even after I showed you that you're just in the pit of despair right now. If you're still thinking about giving up on YouTube, then leave in the comments why, and hopefully I can help you out. If you enjoyed this video, like the video, subscribe, all that stuff, and I hope to see you on the next video.